Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is the Steak Bake or James, and today we're going to be reviewing my Premier League predictions from the start of the season with what actually happened at the end of the season and seeing whether I'm a psychic or whether I'm more of a crazy person shouting rubbish. Probably the latter, I would imagine, but we'll find out across the course of this video. I'm also going to be comparing myself to other YouTubers that did predictions. We've got Danny Aaron's, Pieface, Spencer FC, Miniminter, various other people that we're going to compare ourselves to at the end. So hopefully I've done well compared to them. Otherwise, there's a reason they're the popular YouTubers and I'm not. If you want me to be a more popular YouTuber though, please drop a subscription down below and a like if you do enjoy this video. There is more content coming from the channel very soon. My next video is probably going to be a review of every Premier League team in my opinion. We also do gaming stuff like Minecraft, FIFA, Football Manager, various things like that. More to come from this channel over the summer, certainly with the off football season. I won't be distracted by football. I can get into the channel and really produce some good quality content for you all. So if you do want to see more of that, please leave a subscription and a like down below, and let's get into this video. First things first, it's a scoring system that has been devised on the platform mostly by Spencer FC, who's basically the person who does the Premier League predictions most of all, and probably was one of the first channels to do it, I would imagine. And he scores it as every single position in the league that is wrong from my predictions. So say I predict 5th and they finished 6th, that's a 1 place difference. You get 1 point for that. So the closest to 0 is the winner. The person predicts the lowest score, much like golf, is the person who wins in the predictions. And for reference, Spencer says probably between 40 and 50 is like an amazing season. 50 and 60 is kind of average, normal. Anything above 60 is a fairly poor season. And if you're hitting the 70 mark, it's not been good for you. You've made some wild predictions, and we'll see how close I hit to those kind of numbers throughout the video. And of course, the other YouTubers, don't worry, I'll remind you at the end. Spencer's average score is 62. That's not too bad, pretty good. And we'll compare all of those at the end. But let's get in to 20th place in the league. My 20th place prediction was Norwich. No real surprises or prizes for guessing that one. I think a lot of the people that predicted the league predicted that Norwich would do pretty much what they've been doing the last few years. They seem to have a very weird model where they are quite happy to spend money and look really good in the Championship. And then when it comes to the Premier League, they spend nothing, they take the parachute payments and they go back down. I don't know whether they're building up like a big pot of money so that they can have like a real go at going in the Premier League like 10 years time and then they'll just wiggle between the leagues until then. I don't really know, but it seems like they've got something figured out anyway, and that plan is being a yo-yo club. I predicted them 20th, they came 20th, 0 points for this prediction. We're on track for a big 0, yes. Now, 19th, I was called biased for making this prediction, but I don't actually think I'm as far off as the prediction looks. So I predicted Southampton to finish here because I didn't think that they had the team to keep them in the league this season, and they'd lost some really key players at the start of the season, and I thought they would lose more. So my prediction was kind of based on the fact that they'd lost Danny Ings, and they were going to lose, at that time, James Ward-Prowse to either Liverpool or Aston Villa. So basically I could see that they probably looked like they weren't the strongest team this year. I just didn't think that Southampton had enough really, and it showed at the end of the season when they started to run out of steam. I think if the league had run on for maybe another 5 more games, I think Southampton would have been drawn right down into that relegation fight. They're only a couple of points off safety. But yeah, I just think that they could have gone down this year, and I think if they don't invest in the summer, I think it's going to be a tough season for the next year. I predicted them 19th, they ended up finishing 15th. That's 4 points here. They're only 5 points clear of the drop. They're only 5 points off. So it's not the worst prediction in the world, but it does get me a lot of points, which isn't great. We're up to 4. Watford now, and they placed 1 place worse than I predicted them to place. I thought they'd finish 18th. They ended up finishing 19th. Either way, it was in the relegation zone, and there's no real prizes for saying that the promotion teams are going to go straight back down, because that's just kind of like a cop-out prediction, or, you know, the most likely outcome if you're going to predict something. You don't get any prizes for saying which team's going to be relegated when they were quite obvious this season, I would say. Watford, they did all right. They did all right. They certainly had spells where we thought, oh, hello, there's a bit of a team here. Emmanuel Dennis was absolutely fantastic, and actually a little bit unlucky to not get a Team of the Season nomination. Probably wouldn't have put him in the Team of the Season, but a nomination certainly. He had double-figure goals for Watford this season. Sarr's a very good player to watch, and everybody loves Ben Foster, who we will mention at the end of this video because he is one of the people that we are comparing the predictions of. Ben Foster on the Fozcast at the Cycling GK channel, he did do a prediction. I won't say where he came, but let's just say he didn't predict Watford to get relegated. Why would he? Why would he? But I did, and they did get relegated. 1 point here, we're up to 5. 17th here, and I put Burnley, and Burnley ended up getting relegated, but I think I said something along the lines of every single year Sean Dyche pulls off some kind of miracle and keeps them up. This year might be their year to go down, but that Sean Dyche factor is going to keep them in the league, I think, is how I'm predicting it. This year, he wasn't allowed to do that. He was sacked before it got to the real relegation fight at the end of the season. Yes, Burnley were just teetering into the relegation zone at that point, but they came out and then went back into it. And I don't think Mike Jackson, although he had the initial spur of players on, which a lot of manager changes do, they have that 3 or 4 game spell where suddenly the team played with a little bit more freedom and they're like, oh my god, the manager's gone, oh yes, I can play with a bit more freedom, I might get picked. If I play for the shirt, I might get picked more, that kind of thing. And it did inspire them for a couple of games, but then they just lost it at the end. They couldn't pick up those vital points that they needed, certainly on the last game of the season, and Leeds ended up staying up over them, and they ended up getting relegated. So I'm only 1 place out. Burnley, in my opinion, made the wrong decision to sack Sean Dyche. I actually think they should have stuck with him. By making him leave, they ended up getting relegated, and they're going to be in real trouble next season because the money to buy the club this season was bought against the club. They've got themselves in debt by buying the club. They now have to repay that because they got relegated. And I just don't think it's going to be a great season next year for Burnley. I don't think they're in danger of like a double relegation. I don't think they're going to Sunderland or Portsmouth or Wigan or someone like that. I think they're probably just going to mid-table, a bit like Stoke. You know how they got relegated? They didn't have great finances when they got relegated under Mark Hughes. And they've ended up kind of that 10th to 15th kind of band of the Championship for a few seasons now. And I think that's going to be Burnley, unfortunately. I think they're going to struggle to get back into the Premier League anytime soon. Anyway, we'll see. You never know, they might come straight back up. But yeah, I got this prediction slightly wrong, but only 1 point. Not too bad. This next one I am absolutely fine getting wrong because it's a team I like very much, and I was on the right lines with my prediction. I predicted that Brentford would finish in 16th place, and they actually surpassed my expectations. My expectations were that they wouldn't really be drawn into too much of a relegation fight. They would probably just be clear at all points, you know, probably hitting that magical 40, 42 point mark. And they were very much clear for most of the season. The signing of Christian Eriksen was actually probably what really kept them in the league this season. It meant that they ended quite a bad run in the early part of 2022 and then moved on to improve towards the end of the season. And that was probably what kept them up considerably. However, they finished in 13th. I'm 3 places out. I get 3 points for this. It's not too bad. So I was on the right track, but yeah, still ended up picking up points here, unfortunately. 15th place, and this is where I put Newcastle United. This was before their takeover, and they had Steve Bruce in charge at the time. And if I had given Newcastle fans 15th at the early part of this season, they would have bitten my hand off for it because their start to the season was woeful. When Eddie Howe took over, they completely changed as a team, and that is the reason why this prediction is so far out, because nobody could have predicted how well Eddie Howe did when he came in and was given a little bit of money from the new owners, and I think he'll be given a lot more in the summer. I really think Newcastle are going to kick on next season, possibly chasing those European places. Certainly the Europa Conference League, I would have thought, would be their target for next season. One of the things that Manchester City did not great when they first started with all their money was they bought really, really high-profile signings from foreign leagues that didn't really work, like Robinho. He came in and he didn't really work. Newcastle need to do that a bit better. Put them 15th here. Another 4 points that we're going to get wrong because they ended up finishing 11th, which is huge for them. And we'll get on to interesting bets and things that were done by other YouTubers on Newcastle's position next season. Looking at you, Thogdad. We'll get into you later. But right now, we're taking the 4 points and we're moving on to 14th. 14th for me was Crystal Palace. I backed Vieira to do okay. I didn't think they'd ever really be drawn into any kind of relegation battle, and I was proved correctly. They actually massively surpassed my expectations. A lot of the YouTubers predicted that they would probably be quite at risk of relegation this season because they lost Roy and they had brought in Vieira, who a lot of people said probably wouldn't be able to make it in the Premier League as a Premier League manager. he proved everybody wrong and really shut a lot of people up, including Everton fans. More next year, I hope. 2 points in this one. Moving on to 13th now, and a lot of these mid-table teams were very close on points at the end of the season, and they were moving around all sorts of places. Like Newcastle could have finished 14th or 9th with the last 2 games of the season. It was a real jump around in that section of the league table. I predicted Brighton to be well clear of the relegation zone then this season, and they actually had a wonderful season under Potter. He was fantastic. He produced more magic than anyone by the same name has ever produced at Hogwarts with Brighton this season. And yeah, he really made them kick on as a club in the Premier League and establish themselves as a team quite clear of relegation zone now. They've had a very good year. It's Brighton's best ever season in the top flight. So yeah, I hope they continue. And yeah, it was good to predict them in 13th, but I've actually been given 4 points here because they finished 9th. Really good season from Brighton. Another team that I'm getting more points for because I predicted them slightly lower than they would finish, but in that general area, again, a couple of points in it, is Wolverhampton Wanderers in 12th place. They ended up finishing 10th. Not a bad season from Largay, who came in, and the Wolves boys did really well. It's not an awful prediction, is it really, to get 2 points here, but they did surpass me, and I am picking up points, and it's beginning to build a little bit now. These little chunks of 4s and 3s and 2s are beginning to build. I'm not liking it. Let's get some predictions smack on, please. Let's move on to 11th place. Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to be salvaging any points with this next prediction. It is one that a lot of YouTubers got really, really wrong this season, and that is Everton. I predicted them to finish in 11th. They ended up finishing 16th, and very, very much could have been relegated this season. And such a huge club that spent nearly £500 million on their team over the last 10 years. You can't be doing that. You can't be getting down near the relegation zone on that kind of money. It was a bit of an embarrassment for the club, to be totally honest. And I'm going to be honest, I wanted them to go down. Not because I don't like Everton. I actually do. I think Everton are a fine club. They have some great fans down at Everton. Love their stadium. Goodison Park's a great stadium. Bit cramped, but it's a fun stadium. I just felt that it would have been really interesting to see such a huge club go down. It's been a long time since a really big club got relegated from the Premier League. Frank came in at 16th and took them to 16th, but is kind of being heralded as this saviour. I don't think Frank necessarily saved them this season. I certainly think they probably would have picked up those results anyway. But overall, Everton had an awful season, and I was actually one of their better predictors. I predicted them to finish in 11th, which is only 5 places out where they ended up finishing. But there were YouTubers that were predicting them to finish, 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe even into the top 7 teams this season, and they really didn't look like it. And I expect they'll lose quite a few players over the summer, despite the fact they stayed up. It'll be a weird season for them next year. I don't know if Frank will stay in charge, but who knows. 16th for them, 11th I put them, 5 points to the total. Well, from 11th to 5th, my predictions went a little bit gnarly, I would say, even 4th actually. Went a little bit gnarly, so here's where it all goes downhill. Not that it was particularly uphill from this point anyway. Clearly, my predictions have not been great, but 10th place, I predicted West Ham United to finish there. I felt that because they had quite a thin squad, and they would be playing in Europe this season, they would probably struggle in the league if they were focusing on Europe, or Europe they would struggle if they were focusing on the league. They ended up doing really well in both, so fair play to David Moyes and his West Ham United team. David Moyes is a fantastic manager, and with a team like West Ham and with Everton when he had them in the past, he's the perfect man to get you to challenge for Europe, to exceed where you're supposed to be as a club. And I think West Ham will continue to disrupt that top 7 in the coming seasons. We shall see though. Now, this prediction was an oversight from me, and this is probably the prediction I am least happy with. Despite the fact that other predictions got me worse points, this is one of the ones that I am the least happy with, because I didn't consider that Arsenal not being in Europe this season would have a benefit to their league position. And that's what I think has happened this season. Yes, they've kicked on. Yes, they have a very young side and they've pushed really well for Europe. but I think something to do with not playing on a Thursday or on a Wednesday midweek, having that week break every single week for Arsenal this season has benefited them and their players and their fitness. But yeah, probably not my best prediction. I'm not massively out here. It was 9th and I predicted 5th, so it's a 4-pointer. But it's the one I don't like the most. I probably should have realised that Arsenal were going to do better than they did last season because they didn't have Europe. This one's the big one. This one is the one that scored me the most points, and rightly so. It wasn't a great prediction. However, it's not without justification that I put them where they were. I said that Leeds would improve from 9th place to 8th place this season. They ended up having a nightmare of a season and finishing down in 17th place. So 9 positions out, 9 points. But my prediction was founded with faith that they would stick with Bielsa, that Bielsa would be allowed to spend some money, and that players would remain fit. Patrick Bamford, who was nearly the top goalscorer in the whole of the Premier League the season before, was out for nearly the whole season. They didn't really replace him at any point. They struggled for goals. They conceded goals like anything. They got rid of Bielsa. It wasn't a great year for Leeds. I think they'll do better next year. Certainly if they buy a couple of sensible players. I think a couple of their players that I predicted to be good, like Firpo, for example, actually ended up being a big flop. But with Bielsa gone, I don't think it's going to be Leeds pushing into the top half. I think Leeds might finish in 15th or something next season. Still slightly in the relegation battle, but clear of it. I think that's probably where they'll be aiming. I certainly don't think they'll be aiming for top half. It was my worst prediction by a long way. 9 positions out, a huge failure, and it might cost me in the long run. We are really just chaining the poor predictions together now, aren't we? 7th place, when I made this prediction, it looked nailed on that Harry Kane was going to leave. Nuno Espirito Santo was the manager of Tottenham, and they hadn't really made any class signings. So I said that they'd scrape the Conference League. I said they'd finish in 7th. But basically, I should have had more faith in Heung-min Son. My player of the season, personally. He was absolutely fantastic, and he's always a great player to watch. Really fun guy, really nice guy. Smile on his face when he's playing. He just clearly loves playing football, and he's really, really good as well. He tied for the Golden Boot with Salah this season, but didn't score any penalties. So in my eyes, he edges it over Salah for the player of the season, in my opinion. They did tie for the Golden Boot, and Sonny was an absolute legend for Tottenham this season, and they finished in the Champions League places, and I think they'll have a decent run next season in the Champions League if they sign Kulusevski from his loan option. Yeah, I think Spurs will do well next season. I think they'll get reasonably far in the Champions League as well. We shall see. Not the best prediction from me, another 3 points. We're continuing with bad predictions. I kind of had a little hot take here where I was like, you know what? Aston Villa have sold Jack Grealish for £100 million, and they've bought Leon Bailey, and they've bought Ebi Buendia, and they've bought Danny Ings, and I thought, you know what? They've bought everything that Jack Grealish had in 3 or 4 players to kind of fill out their team and have some depth and look really good. And they ended up having an awful season. They really did. They ended up having to sack their manager. They ended up bringing in Steven Gerrard, who did bring them back from the brink a little bit, along with him and Coutinho. It just didn't happen. It was a hot take that went hotly wrong. And yeah, 8 places out, 8 points here. We're really racking up the points total now. I need to avoid getting too much over 60 here, because otherwise this is a very poor league for me. 5th place, and this was not an uncommon prediction for people to predict that Liverpool actually wouldn't have the best season. They ended up finishing in 2nd, of course, and really giving City a run for their money. But if you look at their previous season, where they finished 3rd, the only reason they finished there was because they went on a 5-game win streak at the end of the season. They didn't look great, and once they had the injuries at the back, they really did seem to struggle in a couple of games. They ended up only getting, I think they barely scraped 70 points in that season, and both Chelsea and Leicester could have finished above them with wins in the last 2 games of the season. In fact, Leicester ended up bottling Champions League in favour of Liverpool and Chelsea. And yeah, I just thought that perhaps Liverpool would continue in the same vein. What I didn't predict was that Virgil van Dijk coming back would have such a huge impact on the team. It really did. They made some really clever signings as well, certainly in January with Diaz and I think there is a reason why they are continuing to challenge that City for such a big, high points total. 92 again for Liverpool this season, a huge number of points. Basically, it ended up being a poor prediction, but it wasn't without reason. And a lot of people predicted for, I think their average prediction across the board, or the most commonly predicted number, was 4th place. I kind of thought that maybe they would drop out for Leicester, but we'll get on to Leicester now, I think. Yeah, it wasn't the best season from Leicester, I would say. It did look at one point that they were going to finish in 10th or 12th, and they ended up having a bit of revival near the end of the season. 8th place is not good for Leicester. I don't think the fans will be particularly happy with that. Leicester will have a better year next year. Not the best prediction from me. 4 points, again, you know, yeah. 3rd place, and previously, in the previous season, they finished 2nd in the league with Ole at the wheel, and it looked like Man United had perhaps turned a little bit of a corner. They had got rid of a lot of their backroom staff, like Edward Woodward, for example, has gone, and they started to sign players that I thought, yes, this is a Man United team that looks like they're on the upwards trajectory. They signed Varane from Real Madrid, great signing. They signed Jadon Sancho, who I loved at Dortmund, and I was like, this is the signing, this is the guy to turn Manchester United back into that team. And then they signed Cristiano Ronaldo as well, and it looked like they were going to have a great year. They ended up having probably the worst season they had since Ferguson left, I would say. Certainly the worst number of points they got. They didn't hit 60 points in every other season. Even when they finished outside of Europe, they've hit over that total. They didn't hit it this year, and there were a lot of points in the season where you thought, this isn't Man United anymore. This isn't a Man United team that you want to watch every week. It was drab. It looked like the players didn't want to be there, and ultimately, apart from a few moments of magic from Ronaldo, De Gea, Fernandes to a lesser extent, they probably would have finished even lower, I would imagine. Basically, they ended up finishing 6th when they should have been finishing in the Champions League. Ralf Rangnick didn't really work out. Ole went pretty early on in the season. Hopefully Ten Hag can do something else, because Ten Hag is a very good manager, and I think hopefully he'll do better next season, given the right backing. I like what I've seen from him so far anyway. He seems very with it, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that he's bald with a beard. That's got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it at all. 2nd place, not a bad prediction this one. They actually ended up finishing at 3rd, and they had not the best end to the season, but throughout the season it looked like Chelsea were going to finish in the Champions League places. I actually thought they might even push City a little bit further when they signed Lukaku. He was on the back of winning the Golden Boot in the Italian league. It looked like he was the perfect man for them, really. He'd been at Chelsea before. He had Premier League experience. He scored goals at Man United, even though sometimes Man United didn't like him and he had off games. He still scored a lot of goals for Manchester United and for Everton as well. It looked like the perfect signing. It didn't really work. Lukaku looked like he didn't want to be there at Christmas time, came out and said those things in the media and actually disrupted the squad pretty badly from saying those things, I would say. Tuchel's controlled it really well, and with the stuff going on in the background, it's not a surprise that they didn't finish as well as they did the previous year. Their takeover is pretty much nearly done now. They've got the preferred bidder, they've been accepted by the Premier League, it's pretty much done, and they say they're going to spend at least 200 million next year. The rest of the league are a little bit disappointed that you've got your money back, let's be honest, but we would have liked you to start finishing 7th and 8th. We all would have liked that. I'm just kidding, Chelsea fans. No, it's good that they will continue to be competitive in the future and keep this league competitive, because the final team is Manchester City, and this season at one point it looked like it wasn't going to be competitive at all. City were 14 points clear, they were scoring goals for absolute fun, and it had just gone past January and they just looked like such a good team. They then had a little faltering run, and Liverpool ended up just winning and ended up closing that gap really closely for the end of the season. That amazing end of season day. Yeah, that final day was absolutely mental, to turn it around from 3-2 down as well, and got 3 goals in 5 minutes with Gundogan and Rodri. It was so exciting to watch. It was almost like if it had happened later on in the game, it'd have been like Aguero all over again, but it really wasn't quite that. It was such a good watch though. I was watching the City game live and I kept thinking, City are losing, I should probably flick over to watch Liverpool and watch them lift the title, but hey, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I stuck with City. Yeah, congratulations to City. They looked unbelievable all season. 93 points and 99 goals. 0 points for the final one, and that leaves my total at 64 points. So in that bracket of it's a meh season. It's a meh season for predictions. A little bit above average, a little bit poor, I would say. I'd say it's meta poor. But let's go on and compare what I did with some other YouTubers and content creators. Spencer FC's best ever score is 44. I will tell you that the winner this year also got 44 points and 5 out of 20 correct predictions. Not bad, not bad. We'll see how that is in just a sec. We'll do the top 3 and then we'll kind of whiz through the rest of the league and show you where I am and where some of the less good performing people are. So, third place is Thogdad, and he managed to get 48 points this season and 3 out of a possible 20 bang on. Really, really good prediction from him. There was one prediction, though, that I think was probably a pretty bad one, and we'll play a clip of it now because you need to send this to him and make him do it.
Newcastle United now, last season they were 12th, and if Newcastle finish higher than 12th this season, I'm putting on Thogmum's pink dress. I'm going to run through the centre of Newcastle on a night out.
So yeah, I can't wait to see Thogdad in a dress in an upcoming Thogden video. It'll be really funny to see him run through the streets of Newcastle in his lovely pink dress. But actually, he had a really good season with predictions, and as I say, he got 48 and 3 correct answers. And if he'd got more correct answers, he would have probably finished in second, because the thing that separated him and the person in second was not points. They got the same number of points, but the person who finished in second actually predicted one more spot on, so therefore I put them above. And that person is Simon Minter from the Sidemen, or Mini Minter as you may know him. I'm sure you know who Simon Minter is, like probably one of the most famous people in the UK along with the rest of the Sidemen. He did really, really well. I've also included him on this list as the What's Good podcast with him and Randolph, but we'll give that more to Randolph because Simon's predictions were not taken quite as seriously in that, and they finished slightly further down than Mini Minter did. Simon, yeah, 48 points yet again, but he got 4 correct, which is 1/5 of the league, completely 100% correct, which is an unbelievable score. Really well played to Simon, and there are a couple of calls in there that probably could have won him if he'd not made them. He backed his team Leeds a little bit too much. If he'd been a little bit more realistic with Leeds, we might have seen him get record points here. Next season, maybe back your team just a little bit less. And finally, on to first place then, and who will be the winner of the Content Creator League that I have produced. It is the man, the myth, the legend, the Plymouth Argyle supporter and #1 FIFA YouTuber on Twitch. It is Pieface23, and he has managed to get 44 points, which is an unbelievable season, and he got 5 out of 20 bang on. 1/4 of the league, exactly right, 25%. Unbelievable predictions from Pieface, and actually there were 2 predictions that if he had just reversed them, he would have got maybe under 30 here. He predicted Brighton to be down there with relegation, and he predicted Southampton to be in the top half of the league, exactly where Brighton finished. If you swap those 2 around, he got the league pretty much as it was. Yeah, mad. Well played to him. Well played to him. And that's from a Portsmouth fan to a Plymouth fan. And I know that Pieface doesn't particularly like Portsmouth. But yeah, well done to him. He did unbelievably on the predictions this season. And he is the winner of the Content Creation League this season. Hopefully I can fight a little bit better with him next season. And along with lots of other content creators as well. Let's go through the rest of the league and fill it in, and you'll see where I finished pretty close to the bottom. But, you know, we'll get to that. And as we look further down the league, we have the Master Bucks and FMG having really good performances with 52 and 54 respectively. Again, Everton was their real stumbling point, as you can see. The pioneer of these kind of predictions leagues, and of course the pioneer of the scoring system, Spencer FC, finishes next on 58 points. And there's like a little group of 58 point scorers with him and the What's Good podcast. Of course, Randolph and Mini Minter, who actually came second, did another prediction together, and that is where they have finished. Pretty good predictions from them. 58 points is nothing to be sniffed at. Probably like a good to average season for those guys. Then we have the cluster of Stuntpeg, Danny Aarons and Thogden. Danny Aarons was actually the only person to not get a single prediction right. I believe he changed Manchester City and Chelsea around at the last minute to be more interesting, and he didn't have Norwich at bottom of the league, so he didn't get any points for those. So actually 0 predictions spot on, but fairly respectable score of 60 nonetheless. Pretty good from him, and Neve and of course Thogden as well did reasonably well as well. Pretty average from those guys. Then we find myself on at 64 points and 2 correct predictions, obviously predicting both the top and the bottom of the league. But yeah, 64 points along with also Vizor as well. He backed his team Burnley, and unfortunately that cost him in the end. Only 1 prediction right as well, which means that he doesn't quite get to be above me in the league, so I actually finished 11th instead of 12th, but really it's joint 11th, isn't it really, with Vizor? 13th place is James Lawrence Alcott, and he did a nightmare with Everton and Leeds again. And also, I don't think predicted Watford to finish in the bottom 3, which kind of cost him quite a few points. And like me, he got lots of 3s and 4s in the middle, which ends up costing you in the long run. Getting 4s is actually really bad. You want to be aiming for 2s, really. If you can get a team 2 places out maximum, then you're doing pretty well. Any more than that, and it starts to add up at the end of the league. And finally, bottom of the league and relegated in real life as well. Unfortunately, it is Ben Foster, the cycling GK, with his predictions. However, he definitely wouldn't have finished there if he hadn't predicted Watford to finish in 13th or 12th, I think it was. Yeah, he would have been about where James Lawrence Alcott is, or even up with me and Vizor in a slightly better position. But yeah, 70 is really not a good score from Ben Foster. That's a lot of places out. And yeah, Everton and Brighton, he was 9 places out with those guys, predicting that Brighton would get relegated. Not the best from him, but at the end of the day, he is a footballer. He has bias towards his team, unfortunately, the team he's playing for. And he can't be like, oh yeah, I think we're getting relegated this season, because that just wouldn't be fair. But he's a great guy, really fun guy, really good YouTuber. I thoroughly suggest you watch him, and all of these YouTubers' links will be down in the description. I'm sure you will follow them anyway, to be totally honest. I'm sure you will follow them, certainly over me. I have like 30 subscribers, and these guys have thousands. So, you know, fair enough. But if I can direct one of you over there that hasn't been over there before, then it's been a successful video, because they all are all fantastic content creators. But yeah, that is the final predictions league. Congratulations to Pieface, you absolutely smashed it. I need to do better next year, that is for sure. So yeah, next video is going to be my season review, where I'm going to allocate 1 minute to review every single team, giving you their signing of the season, their league position, whether they got an A or an F on a rating scale, you know, like a school grade, and I'll tell you whether they had a good year or not, in my opinion. That'll be the next one. If you do want to see it, please subscribe to the channel to get notifications for that video and future videos to come. I'm going to be doing a lot more football content in the future, as well as gaming content, as I mentioned earlier. All of my other links to TikTok, Twitter, Instagram and stuff are down there as well, and the links to all of the people I have featured in this video today, because quite frankly they're all fantastic, and they all did mostly very, very well at predicting the league this season, certainly better than I did. I will be back with a vengeance, I promise you. Next season I will do better. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. That has been this video. I've been the Steak Bake. I hope you have enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video. And remember, be kind to one another. See you later. Bye-bye.